Hi everyone, welcome back to video number 2. The last thing I just wanted to mention about experience is to take a look at the really excellent article that I linked to you in Blackboard that was written by an MCC alumni in the Paralegal Studies program about what it means to have experience when you are applying for a job. So make sure you take a look at that one. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about finding a job. I think I have spoken with many of you over the years about how all of my professional positions, and I mean that, not the jobs I held before I went to law school, but once I decided to become a lawyer, every single job that I have obtained as a lawyer or a paralegal instructor has been through what I would call networking, which is really meeting other people that were doing what I wanted to do and talking to them. It didn't mean I got a job right away. It wasn't even like I was applying or asking for a job that day, but it was why we did the informational interviewing. It was talking to people in the chosen profession about what they do, the skills that they need, how did they get their jobs, and it really became multiple things for me. It was just a way for me to learn more about the profession I was going into, what I wanted out of a job, what I didn't want out of a job. But it also just gave me connections that maybe when a job opened up, someone would know me or think of me, or maybe they could introduce me to another colleague and say, oh, I met Hallie Sugarman and she's looking for a job. I don't have a job to give her, but let me pass her on to you. So that's the last thing I listed on here was networking. I'm going to talk about this more in our next unit also, but I highly encourage you all to join and go to the events by the Massachusetts Paralegal Association and the Paralegal Association of New Hampshire. These are just amazing organizations of working paralegals who are passionate about what they do, and they're passionate about the paralegal profession, and they want people to be able to grow in this field. And so it's a resource for you. It's a professional resource. Talk to your professors too. Talk to me, talk to your other professors. All of your professors in this program, with the exception of one, are practicing attorneys. And so they are really good resources. Again, they're not going to offer you a job, but they can talk to you about the skills. They can talk to you about colleagues. They can talk to you about areas of the law. So just take advantage of the fact that you know now several lawyers. Other just general job advice is to look on lots of different websites. Don't just keep going back to the same ones. I've also, if you join Massachusetts Paralegal Association, they even have their own job board for members. You can also look at Massachusetts Lawyers Weekly. That's a weekly newspaper in Massachusetts that posts ads. And I would also mention to be expansive in the title that you search. Paralegal is a really good one. Search for the word paralegal, but also be creative. Think about words like docket clerk, contract specialist. Sometimes these are like hidden paralegal jobs under just some other title. Legal assistant is also sometimes treated synonymously with paralegal. So don't be afraid to look at legal assistant, but make sure you look at the job description itself. I would probably encourage that after you graduate from this program, I guess I should say this way, I would discourage you from applying to be a legal secretary. You have a skill set that surpasses that of being a legal secretary. So although that could be a foot in the door at a law practice while you are still a student, once you graduate from here, you can demand different work and higher pay. So I would not apply for those jobs once you graduate, unless it's with, work for us for a month and then we'll promote you. So not legal secretary, go for the paralegal level position. All right, let's spend a little bit of time talking about our resume. And again, I'd like to come back to this in our next unit also, but I think it's worthwhile to mention it here. Because to me, it's not just the resume, it's the resume is plural. So look at a template, Google what a resume should look like, great, get an idea. But the resume is really the document where you're going to be able to turn to the employer and say, see, hire me because you want an employee that does A, B, C, and D. Here's your job description, and here's my resume. And you want your resume to match the job ad as much as possible. I'll say that again. You're going to want your resume to match the job ad as much as possible. So if the if the job ad, I'll go back to the civil litigation practice, says experience drafting court documents like interrogatories, document requests, complaints, and answers, you would love your resume to have something that says that too. Even if it was something that you potentially learned in a class, you can find a way to fit that in under skills developed in coursework. So try really hard to find those words that are in the job ad and have them in your resume and your cover letter too. You should plan to have several versions of your resume. I would never recommend having just one resume that you send out everywhere. They should all be tailored to that particular practice area. And I mean this, I guess it says resume, but I mean cover letter too. So if you're applying to a small law firm in the suburbs, you want your cover letter to describe that that's where you want to work. Why do you want to work at a small estate planning firm in Westford, Massachusetts? Or if you're looking for a job at iRobot, the description should describe why you want to work for a technology, I don't even know what they are, robotics company in Massachusetts or something. Like tailor it to that employer so the employer knows they're not just getting a cut and paste job. They should be thinking, hey, this person really wants to come work for me. And then proofreading. We should, I say this all the time, and I say this as someone who often makes mistakes, forgets to post things on time, has typos in my own documents, but not in my resume and not in my cover letter. Have multiple people read it and make sure that it does not have any errors in it, because the easiest way to get to the bottom of the pile is to have a typo in it. And I'll leave this one other thought. I have another slide, but I recently talked to an HR director for a larger law firm. And we actually had a Zoom, and he literally took out from his desk a stack of papers. And he said, these are resumes that I've gotten from people that might have been choice number 2 for the job. Or the resume just came in blindly and I didn't have a job for this person, but I really like this person. HR directors or hiring managers save the resumes of people that impress them. Even if you were number 2, 3, 4, 5 down the list, maybe you weren't the right candidate for that particular job, but they liked the resume. They liked what they saw. They save them. So make sure you can be that person that connects with that employer so that even if this today was not the right job for you, you're the one that they think of when the next opening happens. I also just want to point out that since so many of us are doing this over, not me, I'm not applying for a job right now, but if I were to be applying for a job, it would be electronic. I do remember the olden days of going down to like a Kinko's copy center and purchasing what we called resume paper, which was a little thicker, nice, I don't even know what it was called. It was like a nicer quality paper. And I would print my resume on that. Now it would all be electronic. So just a cautionary tale is to double check the formatting of your own resume. Maybe you email it to a friend, email it to yourself, and make sure that when your friend opens it, they can see it and it doesn't lose the spacing doesn't go all off or something like that. You can even turn your resume into a PDF so that way it opens as the exact document and you don't have to worry about formatting. Last but certainly not least, and I'd actually like to spend more time on here and I'll run out of time on the PowerPoint, but think about getting references. You can put them on your resume or you can just have them in a separate sheet of paper, but these should be people that can speak to your ability to do the job. So you should be thinking about professors in whose classes you performed well, people who might say that your writing skills are good, you have good communication skills, you were on time with your assignments, you were participating in class, you were personable, you were easy to work with, you could be part of a team. It doesn't have to be somebody from this program or a professor. but you could have a combination of former bosses, other colleagues that you worked with who would also say the same thing, that you were a good team player, that you were organized, someone that can speak to the fact that you were the go-to person, you're the reliable person at work. That's the person that you want to put on as a reference. In terms of interviewing, this is a really tough one. I have heard many people say they like to go on as many interviews as possible, even if they don't want the job, because they want the experience of being interviewed. I don't think that's bad advice. I actually think that's pretty good advice. I don't think you need to go on 100 interviews, but I do think it's a good idea to go on an interview, even if it's a place that you're like, I don't know if this is the job for me, because the experience of being interviewed is practice. Practice the idea that someone will be asking you questions about your experience. Someone will be asking you questions about your resume. Someone will find a line in your resume and say, tell me more about the document filing that you did at this job, or something like that. And someone will be asking you about your skills. I love the list of questions that's on page 261 of your book. Things like, describe a time you ran into an obstacle. It says while researching a legal issue, but I would actually say, describe a time you ran into an obstacle in any job that you've had and how you handled it. Tell me how you dealt one time with a difficult coworker. Tell me about a time that you were in any position, again, not just a legal position, and you were asked to do a task that you'd never done before. So it was something new to you. How did you handle that? These are very common, typical questions that an employer is going to ask. And the more experience you have hearing these questions, the more comfortable you are answering them. It's almost like the what we call in moot court, where attorneys that are going to go argue before a panel of appellate judges practice the round, so that when they get in there with the actual judges, they're not like, oh my God, that was a really good question. I should have been prepared for that one. It gives you an opportunity to rehearse those answers, or at least have something prepared, like, oh, what was a time that I faced a challenge in the workplace? Because the truth is, we've all had challenges in the workplace. That not about the legal profession, all of our profession. So all of our professions and all of our prior jobs. So I encourage you to think about those types of questions and have answers practiced and prepared, so that you feel comfortable when you're sitting there and you're like, you think, without the cocky look on your face, but you're like, I know this one, I've got this one. Another piece of good advice is to research the place where you are interviewing. This is really, really important. Everything is online now. There's no such excuse anymore to say, I don't know anything about this firm. All firms have websites. Attorneys have their own pages. A lot of attorneys are on LinkedIn. You can just Google the name of the attorney and you can learn something about them. And I don't mean this as being creepy. I mean this as being thorough. So that if you are asked in an interview, why do you want to come work for us? The answer shouldn't be, oh, I just need a job and you are hiring. No. They know that. They know you need a job. But why did this company make it to the top of your list? And even if it's not at the top of the list, tell them why. Well, because I took trust in estates as a paralegal student, or I had to work with my grandmother on drafting her will, and I really felt such a strong connection with this area of law. I see that this is what you do, and this is the field that I would like to get into. Anything, something that shows that you know who they are just as much as they want to know who you are. Because you're trying them on. You're also thinking, is this where I want to work? Just as much as they're thinking, do I want to work with this person also? So I look forward to our discussions on the discussion board about this, and we will continue this into next unit a little bit more when we talk about professional development for ourselves, because it's not just about what is that first job, it's about continuing in our careers and finding a fulfilling path. All right, have a great week, everyone, and I'll see you on the discussion board.